speakers from BBC for the boxers as well. Serhii Bohachuk was in my podcast. Manny Robles was in my podcast. Cecilia Braekhus. It was great talking to them as well. So definitely, I wouldn't miss any sort of fight because of that. I also do fight calls in Russian where I commentate the fight live on YouTube, and a lot of people, I do it in Russian, so a lot of people from Russia and Kazakhstan actually watching. So that's a great experience as well, because you get together with the boxing community all around the world, and you have a lot of fun, with them, because they comment, they drop a message in the chat, and you watch the fights together. So it's definitely an experience, a great experience. And on top of that, I'm in touch with Tom a lot. I help him out a lot. So he basically, works. I can see how he works, and he shares his experience with me, and it's so fascinating, because for me, boxing fights are equally fascinating for me and equally exciting as the actual event management and business of boxing, and that's what I'm able to see through working with Tom Loeffler.
It's great that you and Tom are working together, and of course, 360 Promotion. That's exactly his brand company. Hey, I know it will be very soon a fight of women's boxing, and I know Tom is under management of Cecilia Braekhus. I met her before. Hey, I take off my hat off from my head, because she's a very humble lady. I remember I had a great experience talking with her, and she talked a little bit because she was in a rush. But hey, it's gonna have another fight against Jessica Mccaskill. What do you think of this fight, of this movement, women's boxing?
Well, as far as Cecilia Braekhus go, I think she's a tremendous fighter. She's a tremendous ambassador for the sport. Unfortunately, I hadn't had an opportunity to actually meet her in person, but I heard so much great stuff about her. I know that she trained a lot with Abel Sanchez at the Summit, and she was a unified champion. And unfortunately, the fight didn't go her way, even though I thought it was a close win for her, or at least a draw. I'm not sure why she lost that time and why the judges decided that. But I feel like this time she will get her titles back from Mccaskill very easily. I feel like this is going to be a tremendous fight, and she will be victorious in that fight for sure. As far as women's boxing, I feel like this is a great thing. I feel like this is a great step up for in sports in general, especially in such a hard sport as boxing. And we have different, women, female athletes that represent the sport. I actually spoke with them in Canada. Prospect. Her name is Tanya Ovsenik. She's a 3-0. She's five. I think she trains in UK or Slovenia right now from Canada with Scott Quigg. I can see a lot of talent coming into the sport, and the more talent we will have in the sport, the more competitive it will become, and the more exciting it will become. So I'm definitely all for women in sports and women in boxing for sure.
Hey, I'm looking forward to watch this boxing event, because eventually I spoke yesterday with Alicia Napoleon and other fighters, right? And with all due respect to men boxers, sometimes I've been there. That was one time in the Barclays Center, and I can't remember right now what was the fighting. These two boxers, that when they went into the ring, they were fighting each other, but you could tell that it was like a sparring session, because people started getting up from their seats, and they walking away, and I was like, whoa! I was like, it's more, to me, it was kind of like, awkward, kind of weird to see people started getting up from their seats and leaving the arena and leaving just the boxers. And I told these ladies, and I told the female fighters, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's more exciting to see you ladies to fight each other, because you want to rip it off her head from one to another. And what do you think of,
So they don't have much time to sort of, get into the groove and all that. They have to get the job done quickly, which another thing, it's an interesting debate, 2-minute rounds versus 3-minute rounds. But, definitely, their style is very exciting because there's urgency, right? So there's definitely, they take more risk for sure.
Yeah, it's great. I don't know if you could agree with me or maybe disagree. You know, it's I would say it's understandable if you don't. But what do you think is missing over here in women's boxing? That's one of the questions I always ask every female fighter, because eventually the purse that
Mm-hmm.
they make, the paycheck, whatever you want to call it, is not as big as is not as big as a man earns. It's like the paycheck from a man is differently than a woman, and I always tell fighters, like, God forbid if something happens to one of the fighters, and she has to go to the hospital, and is very and is very deeply hurt. So who pays that? That's one question, and who supports her? I mean, of course, the manager is gonna be there, and maybe the promoter. But is there anything else where we can help them, and of course, someone can contribute in order to increase the paycheck? I would say.
Right. I feel like I agree with you that there needs to be more done for female for women in sports, and I feel like in boxing in particular, networks should get behind female athletes. Issue more budgets. Especially for promotions, especially for social media, for great documentaries. For great movies. We don't have a lot of that, and that's why the perception is always it's not there, right? We just don't see it much, but it needs to be promoted. Everything in life, I work in advertising, and everything needs to be advertised properly, and advertising is a powerful thing. So I see that in, for example, Clarissa Shields. She is being very active in social media. She is being very vocal, and ESPN took interest in her. She signed a contract with the Fight Network on ESPN. So that's going to be interesting. Yes, it's not going to be boxing. She's going to do a crossover in MMA, but she's doing that for the same reasons, right? It's just because in boxing, we want to see more budgets behind fights like that, behind women fights. So I think it's possible. I think there's a great business to be made there. I think women in boxing can earn much more money, and I feel like they're entitled to it. They have to earn much more money because they're putting equal amount of effort, and for the equal amount of effort, you have to be paid equally. So it's just a matter of smart promotion. And once again, Tom Loeffler, who had a great experience with working with Cecilia Braekhus, he helped out Christina Hammer. He's actually going to work with another female athletes as well. So he's definitely interested in the subject, and he understands that there's value there from the business point of view. So that means that he can make more money to his athletes as well.
Great. I'm glad that me and you, we addressed this topic, because eventually sometimes the guys, they be like, nah, I'm not interested in that particular female fighter, and I'd be like, dude, she's a fighter. We have to respect her. I mean, eventually she works hard. She I think she does what I mentioned sometimes to the female fighters, and I approach to all of them, because I like to show love to both opponents. At the end of the day, I always tell them, I'm just here to report, to mention, what's new from you. At the end of the day, I'm not the one that is gonna fight. The two of you ladies that are gonna fight each other, so not me. So and I always mention, to people, let's have respect for them, and value them, because they risking their lives too. So it's not only guys that they risk their lives. God forbid, like I said, we haven't seen, and God forbid, I don't want to see it neither, because incidents can happen, unpredictable in the ring, and I think we've been witnesses from a few guys that may them rest in peace, and of course God will bring healing to their families, because they pass away, a few fighters in the ring, and we don't want to see none of that.
Right.
So
No, I agree with you absolutely 100%.
so in that particular case, I always tell people, let's encourage women's boxing. Let's support them. Even though I don't see that much going on behind them, but when it comes from me, I always like to show love. And as I mentioned, I had a great experience with Cecilia Braekhus one time, speaking with me. Of course, it was off the camera, because and at that particular time, I wasn't allowed to record anything. and I agree with it. So I was in the room, but just enjoying the moment, and I would say so. But yeah,
Yeah,
mhm.
no, I agree. Yeah, you know, it's definitely. I feel like we are making progress. Maybe it's a little slower than we should have been, but at least we're going forward, and I'm very happy to see that the industry of combat sports is going forward with that and moving forward and forward looking, I would say as well.
Yeah, great. Same over here, and I want to see progress in all of them because at the end of the day, they bring in action to us, and like I said, it's very exciting to see women's boxing. For to me, is one of the greatest things that eventually. I spoke yesterday with Alicia, and I was telling her I think the machismo is getting out of the door because I interview a few fighters, and most of them they always tell me something that you're not gonna imagine. I mean, they be like, when I started my boxing career, they didn't want to train me. They look at me like, is this really girl wants to fight or making it in the business? It wasn't acceptable for them. But now we can see that the movement is growing, and I'm glad for all of them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
100.
So tomorrow night, that's gonna be an event that eventually people don't want to miss it. Um, I
Yeah,
encourage. Mhm.
absolutely. Yeah, tomorrow at 9 p.m. the main undercard starts on Ring City USA, NBC Sports Network, and also Twitch.com/Ring City USA.
Great. Before we wrap it up, this interview, I want to say thank you to you, Samir, because you're such a great person. I met you in New York one time, and from there, I know in the beginning we were like it was like kind of you know maybe maybe not really approachable because we didn't know each other. But once we started seeing what we were doing around, and then we were like, hey,
Uh,
I know one day we're gonna we're gonna meet again and speak about boxing, and then here we are. So
sure thing. I completely agree with you, and I'm glad that we are in touch. I'm glad that we follow each other's social network, and it's great to be in touch. And it was great seeing you in New York City, and you were very friendly as well. So I really appreciate that.
same as well. Thank you, Samir. What message would you like to bring to all the fight fans? Of course, we're gonna stay tuned and follow your podcast. But besides of that, what message would you like to give to boxing
Right. Of
fans?
course. First of all, yes, definitely follow my podcast. It's a ZZ podcast. You will see all the great interviews and other videos. I don't only do boxing, so if you're into other things, feel free to subscribe. And I do videos and interview other business people as well. Also, a ZZ podcast on iTunes. And for the fight, once again, Serhii Bohachuk is fighting Brandon Adams tomorrow. It's a great fight. It's a 50-50 fight. No one knows what's going to happen. So it's one of those matchups that is really like a pick 'em fight. So don't miss that. And of course, follow me on social media at AZZADOUBLEZI everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, anywhere you can find me, go there and follow me there. But that's pretty much it. It's a pleasure talking to you. It was a great experience for sure.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, Cici. It's always great to talk about boxing. I know we will do it another time, and God willing, when everything gets fixed, we're gonna meet each other again because hey, this is one thing that I miss from boxing: to gather together, to speak, in person. But eventually, we have to do it right now over the camera through the video calls and phone calls because it's for the safety for everyone, I would say.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure, I'm confident that eventually things can open up and we will see each other face to face as well. Perhaps we'll do another one of these interviews.
Yes, we will. So, ladies and gentlemen, and boxing fans, do not forget to subscribe to Aziz's podcast and watch all his podcasts because I've been keeping an eye on him, and he definitely has very topics that eventually he likes to speak with other fighters and bring them all these great news from everyone. So, thank you, Samir, I really appreciate for your time and giving me that space to speak with you.
Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate it.
You're
And
welcome.
definitely, I hope we can do this again.
Definitely we will. Thank you.